Please welcome Laylah Funk.
Thank you, Steve, for the warm welcome, and congrats on your Valentine's Day. And thank you for all of you for being here and tuning in to my session and for Media Post and the presenting sponsors for such an amazing event. I have had a great time getting to meet you and getting to know all of you, and I'm really looking forward to what today and tomorrow brings. So I know a handful of you said that you had heard of Adore Me before. I am their senior copywriter and content strategist, and I've really only been with the brand for about 2.5 years since 2020, but in that short amount of time, I have been incredibly lucky to be very involved, obviously, on the copywriting side of our creatives, but also on the strategy and implementation and the CRM side as well. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about kind of the history and evolution of Adore Me creatives and advertising, and how we're kind of starting to migrate into the digital out-of-home world, and how we're kind of starting to get our feet wet in that arena. So just a little background on Adore Me for those of you that weren't aware of us before the summit. And by the way, for anybody that I've already introduced Adore Me to, I have had so much fun watching you take the word lingerie and run with it. I have had a lot of really funny reactions, so it's really funny to watch. But just some insight, we are a lingerie brand and intimate apparel retailer. We also sell sleepwear, loungewear, activewear. Swimwear season is coming up, but by and large, our biggest category is lingerie. We were founded in 2010, and our biggest mission was to kind of bring extended sizing and plus size lingerie into the market. In 2010, that was pretty unheard of. It was not talked about, it was not cool. So we are really, really proud to be the first lingerie brand to bring extended sizing into the market and to have been the one that was advocating for extended sizing well before it was cool too. So if you were aware of Adore Me prior to the summit, that's probably how you knew us. But internally, we also do consider ourselves to be just as much of a technology company as we are a lingerie retailer. We have an amazing team of probably almost 100 technical engineers out of our Bucharest, Romania office, and they are absolutely incredible at spearheading our homegrown technology and our in-house software systems, and it's really cool what they do over there. So that's a little bit of insight into Adore Me. I guess I will start with like kind of the history of where we started with media buy. Historically, we have heavily relied on traditional media buys, specifically Facebook advertising. And as a digitally native brand, this is something that we were really, really good at. We were good at maximizing the measurements that media buy provides us, and we were really good at utilizing browsing history, internet history, to provide you with an ad that features a product that we are really positive that you're going to love based on your history. Now, a couple years ago, this all started to change when Apple pushed out iOS 14. And I'm sure you all are a little familiar with what this update entails, but it allows users to opt out of cross-app tracking. And given how wary people are of their phones tracking them, the vast majority of users are opting out. I even opt out myself for no good reason, to be honest with you. So that totally changed our strategy, the way we knew it. We were no longer able to effectively communicate with our customers on a really, really personalized level in the same way that we were able to before. So we had to divert a little bit. One thing about the media buy avenue that we were relying on is it typically had a one-to-one audience. So one ad play, by and large, equaled one impression. What's great about that is that you can make it ultra personal. So as we started to migrate into the out-of-home world, our biggest challenge was kind of closing that gap, knowing that it's never going to be a one-to-one audience when you're out of home, but still kind of bringing the personalization factor into it. So our first kind of stab at this was a commercial for Valentine's Day. It was our Valentine's Day campaign a couple years ago, actually. It was not our most recent one. But the theme of the campaign was, what do women really want for Valentine's Day? And we wanted real-life answers. So we went to the home of all truths. We went to Reddit. And we searched what women really wanted for Valentine's Day. And this is what we landed on.
I'd like to eat my weight in raw fish, drink champagne out of the bottle, and bang a few times. Yeah.
Several bottles of wine and a good attorney.
I personally would just really like it if people were nicer to each other. Also, minimizing single-use plastics would be great.
What do I really want for Valentine's Day?
To be dominated. Or romantic coupons could be cute.
My car detailed! It's gross!
My student loans paid off.
Some bling bling for the thing.
To finalize my divorce.
So we realized that this isn't quite as out of home as it gets, but being a commercial, it's certainly no longer a one-to-one audience. We're definitely reaching a larger group of people, but these are real life answers. Like, these are real responses that we receive from real people, and this is a level of personalization that we were able to bring on a Valentine's Day scale, on a large scale, but like still keeping it a little personal. So I know yesterday during the panel, one of the questions that was asked to the panelists was, are there any brands or industries that we think should not be doing digital out of home? And one of the responses, I think it was Jeff, said that the first thing that comes to mind is like, what is going to be seen as potentially inappropriate? What could potentially upset somebody? And I was really interested to hear those answers, because that is the kind of dialogue that we have internally at Adore.me constantly. You know, as a lingerie retailer, and given the product that we sell, we know that we have to be cognizant and sensitive to the general public when we advertise. We also know that our customers respond to provocative language, and that's not something that can always translate over into out of home. So this is kind of a crossroads that we met during our most recent Valentine's Day campaign this year. What we knew is that we wanted the campaign to be bolder and riskier and sexier than really anything that we've ever done before. At the same time, we also knew we wanted a digital out-of-home push. So there was a little bit of compromising to be had there. And it's also important to note that, you know, if you're scrolling through Facebook and you see a lingerie ad on your phone, that is totally different than seeing it out in the public. It has a completely different impact. So what we landed on, we ended up having one version of the campaign that was riskier and bolder, and it went on social media and it went on our website. And then we had a different version of the campaign that was a little bit more tame, and that was what was used for out of home. So this is what you're seeing. This is our out of home, like a part of our out of home campaign for this past Valentine's Day. This was about as risky as we were willing to go with out of home. It's also about as risky as we were probably able to go while still getting the creative approved. Yeah, so the challenge was really creating like one risky version, one tame version, but still having it cohesive enough where it's very obviously still the same campaign. A really good example as to how we've I don't want to say we got called out for it, but we were called out in good nature. How somebody took a TikTok of our out-of-home campaign and said, great, now I had to explain to, it was on the subway systems in New York, and she was a babysitter, and she said, great, now I had to explain to the kids that I babysit why you would ever want to tease someone on Valentine's Day. So that's definitely something that we have to keep in mind. It was all good nature, and I think we ended up DMing her and sending her a product for her to enjoy and wear after she's done babysitting on Valentine's Day. But again, it's something that we really do have to keep in mind. So as we've kind of progressed and moved into the digital out-of-home world, one thing that we've noticed that has kind of surprised us is that things like contextual data, external factors, things like weather, temperature, time of day, neighborhood, traffic levels, those can all be really, really impactful and potentially even more powerful than browsing history and internet tracking, the things that we were relying on before. And this is especially true for near-term purchases. So what I mean by that is your next cup of coffee or something all the way to your Valentine's Day lingerie, if that's the time of year it is. A good example of this is if you sell coffee and it's 95 degrees out, it's obviously going to be more impactful for you to advertise a cup of iced coffee as opposed to hot coffee, and vice versa. I admit that the temperature aspect is a little more applicable to coffee and not as much to lingerie, but that's something that we're actually really excited to A/B test with swimwear this spring and summer. We're excited to see whether our swimwear creatives are going to perform better on a sweltering 95-degree day, or like as opposed to like a 70-degree like balmy day. So that's something that we're really looking forward to A/B testing. But there's one contextual data factor that it's really our tried and true at Adore Me, we rely on it heavily, is time of day and day parting. So we typically do not advertise after 6 p.m. This is tried and true for us. We know this to be true based on our previous campaign performance, based on our website traffic data. We know that a lingerie creative is going to be more impactful when you're seeing it when you're walking out of a happy hour, when you're walking out of dinner with your partner, as opposed to when you're walking your kid to school at 8 a.m. We know that the former is going to be much, much more impactful, so we stick with that. And that's the kind of personalization that having a digital ad can provide us. And that also goes back to like the same story about the babysitter who posted the TikTok. We know that our target audience is not the morning commuter. Our target audience is the person that's coming home after 6 p.m. Another data point that we rely a lot on, and that we're excited to test a little bit in New York specifically, is geographical location and neighborhood. So if you're familiar with Manhattan specifically, you know that the neighborhoods all have a little bit of a different personality, and they're fun to lean into, especially from a copywriting perspective, to the different personalities and see how we can like bring a level of personalization from that standpoint. Now, this says swipe right on me in New York. It's a nod to the dating apps. If you haven't been on a dating app, the general idea is you swipe right on somebody who has a profile that you like, and you kind of hope it takes off from there. Now, this ad was placed in Midtown in New York, and if you're familiar with Midtown, you know it's kind of stereotypically home to like the finance bros. They're typically kind of young, they're single. It's generally home to a lot of young professionals in general, but they're young, they're single, they're generally on the dating apps. So this has potential to be really impactful. You know, if you live in Midtown and you've been swiping left and right all day on the dating apps, and then you see this app, you will probably remember it, you'll probably resonate with it, maybe you'll take a picture of it, maybe you'll laugh at it. Did this creative result in a handful of transactions? Hard to tell. I think we've already discussed that digital out-of-home is a little bit difficult to measure in that way, but it's a type of interaction that a static out-of-home ad just like really doesn't provide you. And yeah, that is a little bit, that's really the evolution of our advertising strategy at Adore Me. We're really, really excited to start diving more into the digital out-of-home space and to get our feet a little more wet with it. Yeah, we're really excited to see how this year's Valentine's Day campaign performs, and definitely use that data to make an even better campaign this year. But thank you, guys.
Thanks, Laylah. What kinds of measurement were you using to assess impact in these previous campaigns?
Yeah, we definitely use a lot of heat mapping and like traffic data to determine, I mean, it's certainly not like a granular measurement, but we're definitely using like general traffic data provided by the city, and also with our static ads on the trains, like we can have general ideas of how many people are on the train at any given time throughout the day. So like we do have a general idea of like impressions. We were averaging around 150 million impressions, which we're really, really excited about. Yeah.
And how are you tracking then online behaviors?
So in terms of online behavior, we know exactly which ads we're displaying at which time, and we can track website traffic data accordingly. So if we know that an ad in Midtown is displaying at 7 p.m., we can see if there was any website traffic data changes in that specific location at that time.
We have time for more questions. Oh.
Hi, very cool presentation, very cheeky creative.
Thank you.
I'm just curious from a copywriting perspective, how do you guys approach the male versus female demographic? Like how much do you see men purchasing for women versus talking directly to women to buy for themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it totally depends on the time of year. I would say for, surprisingly for Valentine's Day, we do find that it's more so women that are buying for themselves, but if we're speaking Christmas or Black Friday, or really just like any general time of the year, a lot of the times it is like your partner buying for you, like your husband, your boyfriend, whoever it may be is buying for you. So we had lengthy conversations about that this Valentine's Day, and I had a hard time coming up with a campaign title that really focused on the woman, because we know that it was the woman that was buying the lingerie for herself, by and large. We ended on XOXO Your Valentine, and it kind of went hand in hand with the Kiss Me, Tease Me, Adore Me, and it's signed XOXO Your Valentine. So it makes it seem like it's on her terms. It's her wish, like those are her wishes, but it's on her terms. So yeah, that definitely impacts the copy in large ways.
What geographic distribution were you using for this nationwide this year?
Yeah, we advertised in 6 of our biggest cities that generally create the most revenue. That is New York, Miami, Chicago, San Francisco, Las Vegas. Yeah, that's everybody.
Okay. Have you tried or looked into going into smaller markets?
Absolutely, yeah. We haven't done it quite yet for out of home, just because we've stuck with, luckily we've had people in the office that are very familiar with our biggest markets, and that's kind of what we've done in recent history. But as far as commercials go, those were definitely national. But yeah, we're definitely looking to get into smaller markets with our out-of-home creatives, especially because if you look at a map of the United States population and compare it to a map of our sales, it's pretty similar. Our customers are really spread out, so it's going to be really beneficial for us one day to tap into smaller markets. And
tell us a little bit more about the contrast between what you were using for out of home and the content strategy for online, and what did that look like versus, I mean, I'm a little more curious about the content choices that you made, what you decided to exclude, and how you tried to tie them together. Was the expectation that ultimately they would be seeing the more straightforward ad online?
It was a little bit of combination of both. So the whole point of the campaign was to list your Valentine's Day wishes, being kiss me, tease me, adore me. That's what we had in out of home. On the social media side and on the website side, the copy actually said, lick me, whip me, adore me. And obviously that is much more explicit. I must say that it goes hand in hand with the imagery, so I wish I had the imagery up for you, but the imagery included...
Yeah, you would have gotten a lot more TikToks off of that one.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. No, the imagery included one of the models like licking a lollipop and another one eating whipped cream. So it does go hand in hand with the copy, and it kind of tones it down while still being really, really provocative. We know that our customers respond to that kind of language. We just also knew that obviously an ad like that wouldn't be approved to be out of home, especially in New York. And also, like we said, we don't want to upset the general public. So that's kind of how we kept it cohesive. Was like still listing out your Valentine's Day wishes, but just different wishes for different spaces.
Laylah Funk, thank you so much.
Thank you.